As we learn more about the Angie Stone case, it appears that there is a significant amount of cover-up taking place since so many things that are happening in the case don't make any sense at all. As you are aware, they have been telling us that Angie died when the van she was in with the rest of her team flipped over. However, new eyewitnesses are now coming forward to say that Angie died not from the initial crash, but rather from the van that struck her after she was pulled out of it. What's more, it turns out that Angie was attempting to exit the van prior to the crash. Does this mean that she knew something was wrong? Where in the world is the truck driver who struck her? This drama is incredibly shady, so let's take a look at it on March 1st, 2025. Angie and her crew were heading back from a Mardi Gras concert in Alabama, cruising down the highway in a Sprinter van. They'd been in town working on a new project filming in the area, but decided to take a break to soak in the celebrations. It was meant to be a quick escape, a little fun before diving back into work. The ride started off like any other, smooth and uneventful, until everything went sideways. Literally out of nowhere, the van lost control and flipped over. All 9 passengers were scared, but miraculously no one was critically hurt. Just as they were trying to process what had just happened and reached out for help, the situation took an even darker turn. A semi-truck barreling down the highway at full speed suddenly slammed into the wrecked Sprinter, crushing it on impact. The sheer force of the collision was catastrophic, and unfortunately, Angie didn't survive. She was the only one who lost her life that night, a heartbreaking reality that left her team in shock and her loved ones completely shattered. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a terrible accident, a devastating case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But as the days passed, people couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The more they thought about it, the more the details didn't add up. How did the truck not see the wreckage? Why was it moving so fast in an area where traffic had likely slowed? And why was Angie the only one who didn't make it? Questions evolved into hypotheses, and soon suspicions began to grow. What had begun as a terrible accident seemed much more convoluted, and then someone who had been in the vehicle that night came forward with a shocking twist. According to reports, the lady, Sharita Murphy, said that the Sprinter's driver had been speeding. She said that Angie had warned him to slow down, but he had ignored her advice and continued to drive faster. A little while after, the van lost control, overturned, and started a series of events that would ultimately result in catastrophe. On her Facebook page, Sharita Murphy, one of the 8 individuals in the vehicle with Angie Stone, said, "We are blessed to be alive." She attributes Angie Stone's composure throughout the incident, claiming that the van driver's excessively fast driving prompted Angie Stone to ask him to slow down, but he refused, causing the van to flip 3 times before being hit by an 18-wheeler and Angie Stone's death. As more people began to speculate and the mystery surrounding Angie's death deepened, what had initially seemed to be a simple case of reckless driving gone wrong suddenly became much more suspicious. Then out of nowhere, a video appeared on camera claiming that she and her daughter had been driving down the highway when they spotted the overturned van on the side of the road. Something in her gut told her to stop and check it out, so she pulled over to see if anyone needed help. As she got closer, she could hear people screaming, panicked and injured but alive, including Angie, who was still breathing.
So we slowed down some, and that's when I noticed there was an overturned vehicle in the fast lane. And it looked like it just happened. I pulled over, I put my flashers on, and I told my daughter to stay in the car. And I ran over, it was a van, and I ran over, and there were so many people in this van, and they were just trying to get out. And I asked if they'd called the cops, and they said, "We're just trying to get out." And they were helping this woman out off the side of the van, and I grabbed her hand and I helped her get down, and she seemed out of it, and I was holding her hand and she was wobbling around.
She managed to pull.
She succeeded in removing Angie from the van, and for a brief moment there seemed to be hope that she was hurt but alive. They were attempting to decide how to get help and keep everyone safe, but before they could even come up with a plan, the woman felt something suddenly pass by. Suddenly, everything changed as a huge semi-truck, seemingly out of thin air, came hurtling toward them. Before she could react, it crashed directly into Angie, and she was gone.
And just like that, she was gone.
Down. And then the next thing I know, I flew and I fell down to the ground, and it felt like something not ran over me, but brushed over me. Like something just swiped over my body. And I got up, and I could hear screaming, and I just focused in on one screaming, and it was my daughter. And all I could do was run across the highway and tell her to get back.
Think about it, this was odd on many levels. The more information that comes to light, the more it seems like this wasn't simply some strange, terrible accident. Angie escaped the first crash, was hauled to safety, and was then struck again a few seconds later. The odds of that occurring naturally are not adding up, and the math is not mathy. There's something wrong about this whole arrangement. Oh, but it's not only that. The truck driver who struck Angie has also been reported missing, and according to one source, no one can get in touch with him. The source claimed, "Hey, I used to work at the same trucking company as the guy who collided with the Sprinter van that struck Miss Stone as she was being treated on the side of the road. She was thrown a few yards by the impact. I don't think he's going to go back to work, honestly." This thing has tormented him, and he isn't answering the company's calls or texts. When we found out that he had turned in the rig and gone, my wife contacted his wife to give assistance. My former boss says his explanation was that he came upon the wreck too fast to make an adjustment to dodge the wreck. As I look at all the details that I have at my disposal, something just doesn't sound right about this. I'm surprised he hadn't been drinking because there is an extensive history of that. Well, I'm not acting as if I'm Perry Mason with the wherewithal to solve a case. I just thought I'd reach out. What's more, reports also have it that the driver's route from Mobile to Birmingham didn't necessitate a stop near mile marker 162 unless detoured or directed. FMCSA data shows no mechanical issues reported on the Freightliner liner to March 1. So what exactly was that truck driver doing on that route in the first place? And more importantly, why has he completely disappeared? Nobody seems to know where he is, and that alone is setting off alarm bells. If this was just an accident, why would he go into hiding at this point? It's feeling less like a tragic coincidence and more like a full-blown cover-up. There are too many unanswered questions, too many details that don't make sense, and not nearly enough transparency. Fans are demanding answers, but all they're getting is silence. Was Angie's death truly just an unfortunate accident, or is there something much bigger, much darker at play? And the real question is, will we ever actually get the truth, or is this one of those cases that will remain a mystery forever? Others said, "Rip Angie Stone, very suspicious death. I'm hurt to learn she survived the initial crash. It wasn't even a crash. The van she was in toppled over into the median and was getting out and helped by another woman only for a semi to cross the median and run over her. You guys don't think Angie Stone's death is odd? I wonder how much they're paying the man who crashed into her car. Wasn't she pursuing them? Jews for her catalog, and what makes Angie Stone's death even more tragic is that she was speaking out against injustices in the music industry. By sad, I mean extremely suspicious. A lot of things don't add up here, including the speeding van, the driver ignoring Angie when she asked him to slow down, the fact that she survived the first crash only to be struck again moments later, and now the truck driver has disappeared. It all looks suspicious, but do you really think Angie was taken out on purpose, or is this just one of those cases where people are connecting dots that aren't really there? Are we looking at a tragic freak accident, or is there something much deeper going on? Leave your thoughts in the comments section and watch this next video.